Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much. Let me start my video. Hope you had a nice break. Were you able to get some coffee or snacks or run around and check on what's happening in your house, just like I just did. So at this time, we're going to get into the focus of today's session, which is really focusing on the dual enrollment process and the experience of your students. So to start off, we'll start with a little video. We were fortunate to have one of your colleagues, Laura at ACE Charter High School, and a student share their experience. So if we can go ahead and get that video started, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
My name is Laura Ochoa. I'm a high school counselor at ACE Charter High School.
My name's Dadan. I go to ACE Charter High School, and I'm a senior this year. What really helped me get into it was one semester at the college class counted as a full year, so it could help me get ahead in that regard. And it also let me have less classes in senior year just because I would get those credits out of the way. Just like online applications to scholarships to for when I'm filling out my college ed application, it's really helped me put that experience that I've been in that environment before and that I can adapt really well. Now, if I'm in a more stressful environment, I can say, oh, I've been here before, and really just base it off those college experiences.
So when they come back to take an IB course or just another course, they have that stamina or experience when a teacher is, requiring more of them. I think also students get to see that they only need one, they do one semester, but they get a year's worth of credit. So they get kind of excited about, like, that entices them, like, oh, I only have to do, X amount of weeks, and I'm going to get a year's worth of credit.
It's really beneficial for just skill learning and getting ahead of all the other students in your class. And just, it's beneficial all around. There's no really drawbacks to it, rather than more homework, but if you're up for the task, it will help you in so many ways further along.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Laura, and to your student for participating in that. It's nice to hear firsthand experience from a counselor and from the student about the value of dual enrollment. So we're going to go over a few things with you today. We're going to talk about the process, the benefits, some information in regards to admissions and the application process, and then talk about some next steps for you. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our presenters who will be coming up shortly. Dr. Eliseo Gonzalez is our Title V Grant Director. Dr. Luis Gonzalez, our Dean in the Division of Library and Liberal Science. Our registrar, Joel Diaz, who you've met earlier this morning, but he's back with us. And I will be presenting as well a little bit on today's dual enrollment session. So I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Eliseo Gonzalez.
Thank you, folks, and welcome to Oxnard College. My name is Dr. Eliseo Gonzalez. I'm the Title V Grant Director here at Oxnard College. And one of the things I'm involved in, one of the areas I'm involved in, is dual enrollment. So just to get you a little background about dual enrollment, is back in 2016, a little known assembly bill called, it was AB 288. So what happened with AB 288, it was that now it split dual enrollment into basically two different entities. We have your traditional dual enrollment. So your traditional dual enrollment is kind of what a lot of us have experienced in the past. So it's generally held before or after school, sometimes are held at the high school. And those are the type of things that we're used to. In 2016, with the passage of AB 288, it's called CCAP, It stands for College and Career Access Pathways Partnerships. So we have now these two dual enrollments, and the biggest differences are that with their standard dual enrollment, you have the courses offered before or after school. These courses have to be open to the general public. What that means is that if you have, like, let's say, for example, at Hueneme High School, we're offering an ASL course. Well, technically, anybody from the community can sign up for this course. So you may have non-high school students attending those courses. And some of the other differences is that although tuition is covered, students may be required to purchase or rent textbooks, and there's also a couple fees involved. These fees are included on this presentation here: a student health fee, a student center fee, and a student rep fee. Now, where this changes with the CCAP is that with the CCAP agreement, this opportunity, we could close this course to the high school. So what that means is, unlike your traditional dual enrollment course where it's open to the general public, this course could be only held at the high school and closed off to the general public. So only at the high school and only for high school students. The other thing about this CCAP opportunity is that it could be held during the school day. So, and all fees are, this option is completely free. So no tuition, no student rep fees, no book fees, no material fees. It's completely free. Now, here's another area in which the dual enrollment and the CCAP courses differentiate. Although we have two separate MOUs with OUHSD, which is the Oxnard Union High School District. So we have your traditional dual enrollment MOU, which states we could offer courses at the high school. So that's basically what it says. Is, we go through all these other verbiage. The difference with the Oxnard, with the California College and Career Access Partnership, is that we have to actually list the courses that we're going to be offering at which school. So whereas the general dual enrollment MOU, it's a kind of broad, we could offer any courses at the high school as long as we have this agreement with them. With the CCAP MOU, we have to be very specific. And actually, I'll touch upon this later on about how we plan for a lot of these workshops, a lot of these dual enrollment opportunities. Next slide, please. All right, so right here, I'm going to talk to you guys about the traditional dual enrollment kind of pathway as far as when we go out to their campuses and help students enroll. Obviously, this could be done in person and virtually, and as our folks at Outreach stated, this seems like to be a little bit easier flow, a little bit more efficiency to the online process. But so the first things when we want to enroll students into a dual enrollment course, the first thing students have to do is they have to apply to OC. Once they apply to OC, they submit a completed dual enrollment forms. I know there are some questions about how do we get these forms signed if the parent doesn't have a signature. I think Joel might be able to cover that, but we do have online forms where parents can click and it'll digitally sign for them, but we'll cover that a little bit later on. So that's step 2. Step 3 is we register for the courses. And every course has a CRN. The student's responsible for entering that CRN, and now they're going to be enrolled in the course. Step 5 is that they attend and complete the class, and step 4 is they pay for fees. So this is kind of our typical traditional dual enrollment pathway. I will tell you this, is generally in the past when we were in person, it generally took between 1 to 2 weeks to get this whole process done. And I'm starting from what I'm explaining is applying to OC to registering for the class. That takes about 2 weeks. And the reason why that takes 2 weeks is that we have to set up workshops. These workshops are based around your schedule and the college's schedule. And what we try to do is set up days and times to go out and present about what is dual enrollment, what is the process. We walk them through that process, and usually that takes a couple different periods. And then, trying to get all the paperwork in from the students, get them signed, make sure everything's signed correctly. And it generally takes approximately 1 to 2 weeks. Again, if we were just to go by timelines, it shouldn't take that long. It's just when we're in person, things tend to take a little bit longer. So that's the traditional way. Now, the next way I'm going to talk about is the CCAP way. So can you, Marcos, can you use next slide, please? The previous slide? There, thank you. So this is our CCAP dual enrollment pathway. And this is a little bit more, it's a little bit longer just because it requires a little bit more paperwork, and it requires a little bit more attention. So when we have these workshops, we have a workshop on a campus, and we talk to your students about the CCAP course that they're going to be entering. And then we'll do a lot of the same application paperwork. So we have the dual enrollment forms, we have them enroll at OC, and then they submit the paperwork, we help them with the registration, and then they attend class. Again, all books and fees are completely free for CCAP. However, I will say this, is that generally for non-CCAP courses, which is your traditional dual enrollment courses, even though there may be some courses that do require some books and materials, at Oxnard College, we do have a lending library, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Luis Gonzalez will talk about that a little bit more. But under the Title V grant, we were able to establish a couple to purchase some books, such as the ASL 101 and 102 books that all your students can check out for the semester. So, and we're also working on OER, which is Open Educational Resources, or ZTC courses, which is zero cost textbook courses. What that does is I'm working with OC faculty to try to create these courses that don't require textbook. So in other ways, the class is free. So again, we're working on things to try and eliminate any barriers that students may hit when they come to OC. Next slide, please. So here's one of the most important things, is that oftentimes in the past, schools will come up to us and ask us, okay, we want to set up this this ASL course, or the theater course, or the English course, or whatever it may be. So what usually happens is every school will, have different requests, and then it was a lot. So we decided to set up a system. And so Maricruz and I got together and we developed what the protocol should be when a school is requesting a dual enrollment course. So what we do is we want you folks to, or any instructor at the high school, or anybody at the high school, if you guys are interested in a dual enrollment course, you would contact or connect with your administrator. Your administrator will then get in contact with Maricruz, have done this, and have a conversation about the course or courses that you guys want to offer. Maricruz will then get in contact with me, and we'll start the conversation about what courses want to be offered and what we can do to help get that course going. And here's the important part. Usually it takes about a year to get this going. And the reason I say a year is because on the college side, kind of similar to what you guys do at the high school side, is we have to plan ahead. We have to plan, what are we going to be offering in the fall, and what are we going to be offering in spring? And then once we determine what courses we're going to offer, we have to hire the faculty to teach those courses. So if you guys are thinking, okay, I want, let's say the semester is about 2 or 3 weeks ahead, you're like, oh, I think we should have this dual enrollment course. It's going to be difficult, really difficult, if not almost impossible to get done. Obviously, we could try to work some magic. However, we need time. We need to figure out a professor to hire, who's going to teach it, the time, the location, all those type of things. So again, when you guys are thinking about dual enrollment, think about a year ahead of time so that we can start getting that process going and figure out how we can make this happen. And the other thing I want to talk to you guys about is that currently we are offering dual enrollment courses in the OUHD district. So traditionally what we would do normally is when we're, non-COVID times, is we would, opportunities arose where we could teach courses on your campus, but we also had times where students came onto campus as a cohort. For example, Ace Charter High School, as you saw in the video prior to this, they actually send cohorts of students onto our campus, and they've taken econ, math, they've taken English courses, and we could help support that. So we could either keep them in a cohort where there's a cohort of 15, 20, maybe 30, and we can mix them with the traditional course, or we could keep them separate. Those are the type of things we could offer. But going back to the traditional dual enrollment where we would offer the courses at the high school, so currently we offer ASL, we also offer Chicano Studies, we also offer Communications 101. We try to get an EMT course started, and then COVID hit, so we had to cancel it, but we're trying to get that back going. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities for the dual enrollment program to grow at your school. And our plan in talking with Maria Cruz is really to offer dual enrollment courses at every high school. So that's our plan. That's what we're trying to strive for, and that's where we're moving towards. And as far as going back a little bit about CCAP, at this moment, we are able to have a CCAP agreement with a high school district and also charter schools. Private schools, I don't know if there's any private school counselor here. Unfortunately, we cannot offer a CCAP agreement with a private high school, but we can do a dual enrollment MOU with you. Also, let me see, we talked about, oh yes, outreach. So a lot of what we do is it's difficult to really get these students excited about a dual enrollment. So what we started doing is we hired some great outreach folks that are really enthusiastic and really have found new ways and are eager to get out to your schools to help recruit students. So our outreach staff can go out there, they could do virtual or in-person presentations, they could table, they could go out to your high schools and do those virtual videos that you guys do. I think they have like Triton Talk and Radar Live. We're willing to go out there. We're willing to go to classroom and do quick presentations. We're here to help. We're really here to help support you in any way we can. And we also were working on a YouTube dual enrollment channel where students can go in there and click on how-to videos, and hopefully that'll help in the process. So again, we're really here to help and support you and in any way we can. Next slide, please. So this is one of the most important things that oftentimes comes into play is FERPA. So oftentimes students or a parent or even a counselor or school staff want to get information about the student. Unfortunately, whether your student is a middle school student or a high school student, as long as they're registered and at the Oxnard College, their information is private. So if the student wants to get information about themselves, obviously all they need to do is contact the school and they can order a transcript. However, sometimes we get counselors that want to get information about their student, or even a parent that wants to get information about their student. Unfortunately, we cannot give that information unless they get specific FERPA release forms signed and turned into our admissions and records office. Until that, or we have an MOU with your high school, but even then you would have to go through your administrators to request this information from Oxnard College if that MOU is in place. If the MOU is not in place, then you're gonna have to have the student either fill out that form and get it signed and turn it in, or just have the student request the information and then hand it off to you. So at this point, I don't have anything else to add. Again, feel free to go in the chat and ask any questions, or I think we're gonna have additional opportunities at the end of the presentation to ask more questions. Thank you very much, and I'll hand it back to Leah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gonzalez. Appreciate your time. There was a question, but I think Laura answered that. So keep putting your questions in the chat. That's really helpful. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Luis Gonzalez, our dean, to talk about some of the benefits of dual enrollment and some of the services we have. Dr. Gonzalez.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you all about the mutually beneficial partnership that dual enrollment provides all of us and your students. Next slide, please. I'd like to start by sharing how this is beneficial for Oxnard College. First, this addresses the equity gap for us, offering more students the opportunity for access to college courses, to our college courses. And please let me know if my sound is off. I've been having sound issues this morning. Additionally, this helps our students be better prepared when they come to Oxnard College. So if we have students that are taking some of our, what we call gateway courses in English or math, but become full-time students for us, then they'll be better prepared for the rest of their classes. This also shortens time to degree completion and or transfer to a university. So if your students are taking classes simultaneously, is it pretty bad? I got a message from a colleague that my sound was off. Thumbs up.
Sometimes if I stop sharing my video, the sound can kind of be better.
All right, let me try that. All right, so apologies. So what this does for us as well is it shortens time to degree completion for the students or to transfer. If they start taking classes while they're in high school, then there'll be fewer classes that they have to take to complete their degree or to transfer once they become full-time students at Oxnard College. So this is beneficial for both the student and for us at the college. Next slide, please. For the high schools, this ensures that your students are prepared upon graduating for college and or a career pathway. My daughter, for example, is a junior at Camarillo High School and took English 101 this past summer. So she'll be one less class that she'll have to worry about once she goes to college. Same thing for your students. If they take some of these classes at our college, they'll be better prepared for whatever future college or university they choose to attend, hopefully Oxnard College. It's also applicable for, they'll be applicable for college and career readiness indicator. Some of the resources that our students have available to them, they'll have access to. We'll be able to provide them with UC and CSU transferable coursework. Again, this will shorten their time to transfer. Next slide, please. For your students, this encourages student readiness at the post-secondary level. So again, some of these classes while they're at the college level might be a little bit more difficult, and it will prepare them for not only our classes, but for your classes as well. So it'll be helpful for both of our institutions for the students to have this level of rigor and prepare them for what's ahead. It provides a deep exploration of industry early on, provides college access to historically underrepresented populations, and again, the biggest one is shortens time to degree completion and or transfer. Next slide, please. Now, another thing that I want to highlight is any student that's a dual enrollment student is officially an Oxnard College student, which means that they have access to all available resources, including what we have available at our library. If you are not aware, our library has, Eliseo, Dr. Gonzalez mentioned it earlier, has access, our students have access to several textbooks at no cost to them. For example, we have classroom sets for English 101, which is one of those gateway classes. And there is a textbook required for some of those classes. So if your student takes that class and is a dual enrollment student, not only is the class free, but the textbook is free as well. Additionally, our math courses, our gateway math courses are working on online educational resources, so they won't have to worry about textbooks for those classes either. Now, some of those math classes do require a calculator, a graphing calculator. Well, the library provides calculators for rent or borrowing at no cost to the student. So they can borrow the calculator for the entire semester. And we'll be working with Eliseo and all dual enrollment students to provide them the calculators at no cost to them. Our full-time Oxnard College students pay a $10 fee to rent the calculator, but we'll be working to make sure that dual enrollment students don't have to worry about that fee. Additionally, we have access to laptops. So right now we're all fully online, and we've purchased several laptops for students to use and borrow for entire semesters so that they can access their online courses. We will be able to provide your students with access to those laptops. I'm sure I'm aware that the high schools have also provided your students with laptops, but just in case, we have some as well. And if for any classes that we don't have a classroom set of textbooks, we have textbooks on reserve, which means that we have multiple copies of certain classes as textbooks available for students to borrow for 24 hours, 48 hours, and so on. So I would encourage your students to check in with our library to see if we have those textbooks available for them to borrow for extended periods of time. Lastly, I want to encourage your students to also be aware that we have our library partially open currently. So right now, most of the campus is closed, but our library is partially open, including our computer lab, which means that we have multiple computers that are equipped with webcams, headsets, and just internet access in general. So if your student needs access to a computer and they're an Oxnard College student, a dual enrollment student, they have access to our computer lab. We plan to have the same services available for students next semester in the spring, or for as long as that we're online and as long as the county allows us to be open. So please be aware of this additional resource and additional place for students to complete their work if they're an Oxnard College student. With that said, that completes my part of the presentation and the different resources available to students through the library. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, and I'd be happy to share more information about what we offer our students through dual enrollment or through the Library and Learning Resource Center.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. If you have any questions for him, you can ask now or you put him in the chat. He'll be here for a little bit and later on in the morning as well to answer any questions. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Now I'd like to introduce our registrar, Joel Diaz, to give you some updates on admissions and records in regards to the dual enrollment process. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome back. As Leah mentioned, I will be going over some of the updates regarding dual enrollment. We did make some changes to the dual enrollment form and the process. So please make sure that students are using the most recent form that we have available on our website. One note is that we no longer require high school transcripts as part of the submission when they submit the dual enrollment paperwork. We do encourage students, if they're trying to clear a prerequisite and they satisfy the prerequisite at the high school, that they attach transcripts so our counselors will have access to them so they can be cleared to register for a course. As I mentioned, please make sure you're using the most recent form. Our forms are available on the dual enrollment webpage. When you review the new dual enrollment form, you will notice a change in the signature requirement for students taking CCAP courses. On this slide, you'll notice that we added a little box that you as a counselor will indicate if this student is taking this class as part of a CCAP agreement. One change that the state chancellor's office did is that students that are taking CCAP courses will only be required to submit the dual enrollment form one time during the entire time they're taking classes, CCAP courses, during their high school year. In order for students to be able to only be required to submit the one-time form is they need to make sure they're using the most recent form. The chancellor's office created a CCAP dual enrollment form, and then we had our own dual enrollment form. So instead of having two different forms for students, we combined the form into one. So students that are taking CCAP courses, make sure that they use the most recent form. This way, beginning if they take a CCAP course in the spring semester, they use the new form. In the following semesters, they will no longer be required to submit a dual enrollment form. If students decide to take a non-CCAP course, they are still required to submit that dual enrollment form every semester that they take courses up until they graduate from high school. Our plan is to, once students are enrolled for the CCAP courses, we're going to put all those students into a cohort so that we can clear those students for courses and subsequent semesters without them having to submit any dual enrollment forms. So it's real important that students are using the most current form so that if they're going to take the CCAP courses, they will only be required to submit the form once. Working remotely has really made us rethink how we offer services and making sure that we make the process much easier for dual enrollment students. So when we created a secure method where dual enrollment students can submit their dual enrollment forms, if they use a secure method on our website to submit them, it goes directly to the admissions and records office. And the admissions and records office, it's queued every single day that there is a document pending that needs to be processed. And those are processed on a daily basis. We're still getting students to submit paperwork via email to OC admissions. And we'll still accept it that way as well, because we want to make sure that we don't hinder and make them take additional steps just because they didn't submit it through our secure method or preferred method. But please encourage those students to submit the forms online through our secure portal submission. There was also a recent change by the State Chancellor's Office where the maximum units a dual enrollment student can take per semester has been reduced to 11 units. In prior semesters, it was 11.5, but we have made that change effective this current semester for fall 2020. So the max is 11 units per semester. Students cannot petition to take over 11 units in one semester. When we made the change, we did look and pull some data, and there's very few students that exceed the 11 units that were at the 11.5 that we had in prior semesters. So it's a very minimal impact for students, this change. As a reminder, our registration for the spring semester starts November 23rd. I would highly encourage your students to submit their dual enrollment paperwork in advance. Since we started allowing students to register for courses online, they can submit their paperwork in advance to admissions and records office. They should not be waiting until the registration date to register. Once we get the paperwork, we're going to process it. We're going to clear the student to register for their courses. They're going to get an email confirming that they've been approved to register for their courses. So on November 23rd, they'll be able to just log into the portal and register for their courses without any problem. Next slide, please. The other thing that we have been working on is we're creating an electronic dual enrollment form. This is going to be completely all electronic. It's going to be routed to everybody to approve. So this dual enrollment form, electronic dual enrollment form, is going to mirror what the dual enrollment paper form looks like. So the way that the student will initiate this form is they're going to log into the portal. They're going to it's going to pre-populate their information because the student is logging into the portal. It's going to authenticate that student and it's going to fill in some of the information. When the student goes in, they're going to put their counselor's email or principal, and then they're going to indicate their parent's email. And they're also going to add the course that they're requesting approval. If they're taking more than one course or requesting more than one course, they can click on the add button, and that add button will allow them to add more courses. Next slide, please. On this form, students will also be able to include attachments. So if a student wants to include their high school transcript or other documents where they need to share a prereq, they can attach it to this document. So once the student submits this form, they're going to sign it and submit it. Next slide, please. Then once they submit it, it's going to the whole electronic routing process is going to happen. So the way the routing part's going to work is the student will submit it, then it goes to the parent for approval, then it goes to the high school counselor, and then it's routed back to the admissions and records office. All done electronically, no need to print print the document. And we're hoping to have this, we're still in the testing stages of it, and we're hoping to go live very soon. As soon as this form is available, I'll be updating, sending out a message, and I'll be connecting with our outreach staff to send out a message to the high school counselors. But we're hoping to get it live very soon. So like I said, we're still in the testing stages. So we're very excited. We've been wanting a electronic form, and we think this is really going to streamline the dual enrollment approval process for students. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a dual enrollment webpage. I encourage you to always visit this page. I update this webpage on a regular basis, and it will always have the most current documents available on the website. As I mentioned earlier, once we have the new online dual enrollment form, I will go ahead and post it here as well. So please visit this website often. And those are all the updates I have for dual enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Again, if you have any questions for Joel, you put them in the chat, or you can definitely unmute at any point. You guys have been real quiet, so we're anxious to hear your voices. So if you have a question, please feel free to jump in. So now I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about some of the support and some of the common questions or things that we see on our end that can really help us to ensure that we are supporting you and your students. So I can go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So it says conversation with the counselor. So we did have a counselor scheduled to be here today, but due to an unfortunate last minute incident, she was not able to be here. So I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about a few things. So one is the counselor experience at Oxnard College. So when your students complete the forms that Joel just talked about, a lot of times our students want to come and talk to a counselor about creating an educational plan at the college. They know they want to come to Oxnard College. They know they want to transfer, and so they'll come meet with one of our counselors, which is wonderful. So they'll sit down with our counselors and make that plan, whether they're already ready to graduate as a senior, or they want to know what it's going to look like at any point of their high school experience, saying, these are my goals, this is what I'd like to do. So our counselors will definitely sit with them and create an educational plan. Some of the questions we get from the students, though, are, can I take this class and will it count for my high school or count as high school credit? And unfortunately, that's something our counselors are not able to answer. So in those instances, we would, that's another great opportunity to communicate with your students about their experience, because what they can do is they can bring back their educational plan that they've created with the counselor, which includes only the courses that they'll take at Oxnard towards whatever goal they have, whether that be an AA, AS, an ADT to transfer, or a certificate. So they can bring that back to you, and then you and the high school can determine if they can get credit. We unfortunately are not able to determine that without consultation with you. Another question we get is as far as math and English placements. So John mentioned that we use multiple measures. So if a student wants to take math or English as a dual enrollment student, we would definitely encourage that student to reach out to John in the First Step Center for guidance on a recommended course. Again, these are just recommendations. The student really can select any course they want, but ultimately it's up to the high school and the designee to write that down on the form, so that when that's turned into admissions and records, we know that that's the class they're going to take. So a student can't just come and say, I want to take this particular math and English and register. They have to go back to you or to the designee at your high school or at your school to get approval for that. So that's a little different, where you'll definitely want to have that student connect with the First Step Center for placement recommendation on math and English. And then again, whether or not that counts at the high school is absolutely up to you and your discretion at your school, your process at your school. So we sometimes get, in addition to all the courses that Dr. Eliseo Gonzalez mentioned, we sometimes get students saying, or counselors, high school counselors or school counselors saying, we don't know, the student may not know what major they want to go into yet, or aren't sure what they want to do yet. Or students will come to us and say, I just want to take a class, but I'm not really sure what class to take because I don't know my future goals yet. And so this is a great opportunity for students to consider taking our PG 101, which is our career development and life planning class, or our PG 102, which is our college success class. So this is a great course for students, regardless of what grade they're in, if they're wanting to do some exploration. And this is helpful for students wherever they go. They don't necessarily have to come to Oxnard, although we would love to have them. If you have students that are, still trying to decide where they might want to go to after high school, but aren't sure about a major or aren't sure about career options, and we know you do provide great resources at your school, but this might be a good class for them to consider, is that 101 class. So what that does is it provides, they go through an assessment. They talk about how to approach the career search or determining which careers they might fit well with them. They talk about values and interests, skills. They do some personality assessments. They do go through goal setting throughout their entire life. In normal times, there might be some field trips to different places. But so this is a great class for students to take. Again, they don't have to know their major yet. They can take it at any time. And the great thing about that is it's a 3-unit class, and they will get college credit for that. And they get transfer credit for that for the CSU. So that does count towards the CSU area EGE. So even if your student's going to go right to, a CSU, as an example, right out of high school, they're already going in with some units, meeting one area of the GE, and have some knowledge about their potential career options. And the same is true for the college success course. So we talk about academic skills, relational skills, how to communicate with faculty, how to just be a successful college student. So again, this can be taken at any point in their high school career. It doesn't have to be, as soon as they're seniors. And I would even recommend they take the two together. So that also counts towards the CSU, or not together, but take them during their high school experience. That also counts toward the CSU Area E. So those two classes are 6 units that would count towards transfer to the CSU, and will definitely help them explore, especially for those students who aren't quite sure yet what they want to do, and once they get to college and further. And another thing to consider, so Dr. Eliseo Gonzalez mentioned this about some of the courses that we've done with CCAP, like we talked about the EMT course that we were trying to do, which we're hoping to bring back, and some of the other courses. But some of the CTE or career technical education courses are other great opportunities for your students to consider. We know that we have a culinary program, we have our dental hygiene program, we have, for example, we have a new cybersecurity certificate, and we have our fire and EMT programs. So I know some of your schools have similar programs. I know there's a similar culinary program. So that's a great opportunity for your students to also explore those courses at the college level, get some experience, see if that's a field that they're interested in going into. All those courses are definitely hands-on type courses where students can really get a feel for what it's going to be like to be in that area, if that's what they choose. So I'd highly recommend you look into that, have your students look into that. And if you aren't sure, I would recommend you contact, we have one of our counselors, Dr. Shannon Treffs. You might know her. She might be out at your school. She is our career counselor and can definitely serve as a resource to you and your students, should that be something that you'd like to consider. And then, as Dr. Eliseo Gonzalez mentioned, if you want to look into a CCAP course, then that's definitely an opportunity as well. And I'll just say from a personal perspective, if that's okay, when I was in high school, I took some college classes at Oxnard College, and just from a personal experience, and I did get high school credit for that, which was really helpful because that allowed me to take, in my senior year, I always had an option for some electives, and there were 2 that I really wanted to take. And obviously I didn't have the space in my schedule to do that. So by having another class completed, and it's freed up another spot and allowed me to do that. But just being on the college campus really helped prepare me for what to expect. I knew where to go. I knew where to park. Obviously it's different right now. But I knew the expectations of a classroom experience from the college level, and where to find the library and where to find the online resources. So I would just recommend that you really consider having your students enroll in those PG classes and have them explore some options for them. And as Dr. Luis Gonzalez mentioned, be a little more prepared for the college experience. So thank you so much. And now I'd like to pass it on to Laura and Imelda to talk about some outreach best practices. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Leah.
Leah.
We are so happy to be here talking with you. Before we get to our best practices, we kind of wanted to introduce you to the team of outreach. Our director of outreach and marketing is relatively new to the team, and he is unavailable to be here today, but we wanted to make you aware that we have a new member of our team, and that's James Schulke. And so in our fall newsletter, he was included, and he gave a nice warm welcome, but we are under his leadership now, and we're really excited for just being able to be out in the community even more and hopefully in person soon. So just kind of making you aware of who this outreach team is. And then of course, with Dean of Student Success, Leah Alarcon, we could not do any of this without her. So we just want to give a special shout out. But Imelda and I are both what's called a student success and support specialist, but we just always say we're your outreach people. It's a mouthful, and really that's what it is that we do. So we wanted to take a moment to talk to you about some best practices. You've heard from the rest of our presenters kind of the background of why this is helpful, how we engage in these relationships, how we get to the point where our students are able to take these CCAP type of courses. So if we can bring the slideshow back up, we'll kind of get into some best practices that Imelda and I have found work really well for getting our students through all the paperwork and getting them enrolled and sitting in their seats, either in class or virtually at home. So the first is, and Eliseo touched on this, is that outreach is available to help with marketing, workshops, etc. We've found in our experience that the more involved that you allow us to be, the more I think successful the numbers are for whatever class outreach is happening for. I think that just is, we bring in a certain level of experience in terms of we can speak to what a class is like. Sometimes it's just a matter of students, like you can tell the student the same thing every day and someone new comes and tells them and they're like, oh, like that's so genius, you know? And you're like, I've been telling you that every day. So sometimes it's just the new face is right. And I think we can also kind of have a bigger conversation about where someone wants to go and what that might look like for them. So in the past, as Eliseo has mentioned, we have literally like pounded the pavement. I think one day at Pacifica High School, my watch tracked me like 6 miles in a day, just going back and forth, presenting in multiple classrooms. We also have become low-key YouTube famous, not really, but we're making some videos available for students, just talking to them about courses. We just did some outreach for a sign language class at Rio Mesa High School, and we made a whole video for them and sent it off, and counselors were able to, you know, put it in I think it's called Parent Square, email it to students, get that broadly out advertised. We've also been known to jump on school news channels. We're not afraid to go and say hello. And so all those things, I think, cumulatively help students recognize us, feel comfortable with us, and have an interest to join the class. Imelda, do you want to talk about kind of the importance of assigning a counselor as kind of our contact point?
Yes. So in addition to all those great points that Laura said that definitely help out with the recruitment of the class, it's very important that we have a contact person. This is the person that we can coordinate with, that we refer students to if they have any questions. For the forms, because as you learned earlier, there are extra additional forms that students need to submit in order to complete their registration to the college. And it's really important that we can refer all these students to one person, and we can stay in communication with this particular counselor. So please, if you are interested in helping out your students with dual enrollment or offering one of these classes, select a counselor that's going to help us out in bringing everything full circle for these students. It's going to make it a lot easier on your end, for us, and of course, the students. It's very, very important. And also it helps the students stay on time, because as you learn, this is very time sensitive steps that we have to take in order for everybody to get enrolled during a certain window. It helps the students on their end kind of get going with the motion of the application, the enrollment, and the forms, because you all have more access to them than we do. So by us letting you know what's happening, the deadlines are approaching, you can set your own deadlines with them and your own communication to kind of get everything completed on the high school end of things. So again, it's really important to have somebody that we can communicate, and then the same message is being sent to across the board for the students that are going to be participating in these dual enrollment classes.
And then finally, I think it was touched on earlier, what a perk of COVID, if you can say, is that in years past, when we have a CCAP course, it's limited to a specific high school. And right now, our courses are open to all OUHSD students. And so we have some coming for the spring, and we're about to drop some videos that we're going to ask you to share in the next week or so. If students are interested, we have a Chicano Studies course. And so some of your students are currently taking Chicano Studies, but if you had maybe a wait list of people that were interested, they can jump onto that course. And then we also have a History of Rock, which is kind of like a music course that analyzes rock music in America from the 50s on. And so those are two CCAP courses that, like, everything is covered for the student. There are no fees, no book fees, nothing like that, that are going to be virtual, that we are doing some outreach for for the spring. And so we'll have those videos to share with you relatively soon. And so we can come and have run workshops at your school if that's something you'd want, or you can refer students to our Condor Corner. We really just want to be as available as possible. We do tend to work evenings as well, so if that's a better fit, we can also make a Saturday happen if that's what needs to happen. But just keep in mind that timing is very critical to what we do. So those are the best practices that we have to recommend for you. At this point, we have finished kind of the educational portion of this presentation, and we're gonna take it to questions. We did have some come through in the chat, and we think that we have answered them. We did get a question. There was a question earlier about what CCAP stands for. And that just stands for the California College and Career Access Partnership. There were also some questions about potentially bringing CCAP to other districts. And so we're going to pass that on to Dr. Gonzalez, and he will get in touch with you soon. Let me check the chat to see if anything else has come in. We're also working on a list of transferable courses available for dual enrollment, similar to last year's UC transfer course agreement. So Dr. Eliseo Gonzalez is working on that. Just want to make you aware of that. And if there are any questions, you can go ahead and unmute yourself at this time or drop it in the chat. We'll just give it a moment. And if not, we'll move on. We'll just give it just a moment. All right. And then just reminding you, in our Padlet resource that we have, there are lots of dual enrollment information. There is lots of dual enrollment information available on there, including links to our website, the dual enrollment form, information for parents. And so feel free to take a look at that and share that with your students and the community.